Marcus Brennan's hands trembled as he gripped the leather armrest of his private jet, knuckles white against the black material. The phone call had come 30 minutes ago, shattering his presentation to the Singapore investors mid-sentence. His assistant's voice, usually calm and professional, had cracked with urgency. "Mr. Brennan, it's your mother. Eleanor collapsed at home. She's at St. Catherine's Medical Center. The doctors say you need to come immediately." The next 14 hours blurred. Marcus Brennan's hands trembled as he gripped the leather armrest of his private jet, knuckles white against the black material. The phone call had come 30 minutes ago, shattering his presentation to the Singapore investors mid-sentence. His assistant's voice, usually calm and professional, had cracked with urgency. "Mr. Brennan, it's your mother. Eleanor collapsed at home. She's at St. Catherine's Medical Center. The doctors say you need to come immediately." The next 14 hours blurred into a nightmare of airports, time zones, and suffocating helplessness. Marcus stared out the window at clouds that stretched endlessly below, his mind replaying every conversation with his mother over the past 6 months. When did her voice start sounding weaker? When had the pauses between her words grown longer? He'd been too distracted to notice, too consumed with expanding Brennan Tech Industries into Asian markets, too focused on profit margins and shareholder meetings. The jet landed at Kennedy Airport at 11:47 at night. Marcus didn't wait for his driver. He grabbed the keys to his backup car from the airport garage and drove himself, weaving through late-night traffic with reckless urgency. The city lights streaked past his window like fallen stars, and all he could think about was his mother's last words to him before he'd left for Singapore. "Be safe, sweetheart. Come home soon." He'd kissed her cheek absently, already mentally reviewing his presentation notes. "I will, Mom. Love you." St. Catherine's Medical Center loomed ahead, its white facade stark against the night sky. Marcus abandoned his car at the emergency entrance, not caring about parking regulations. A security guard shouted something behind him, but Marcus was already through the automatic doors, his expensive Italian shoes slapping against polished linoleum. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with an intensity that made his head pound. "Eleanor Brennan." He gasped to the nurse at the reception desk. "Where is she?" The nurse, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes, checked her computer. "ICU, 3rd floor, room 317. Sir, visiting hours are." Marcus didn't hear the rest. He was already sprinting toward the elevators, his heart hammering against his ribs. The elevator ascended with agonizing slowness, each floor chiming like a countdown. 3rd floor. The doors slid open, and Marcus burst into the corridor, his eyes scanning room numbers frantically. 315, 316, 317. The door to room 317 stood slightly ajar. Marcus approached, his breath coming in short gasps, and then he froze. Through the narrow opening, he could see his mother's hospital bed. Eleanor lay motionless, her silver hair spread across the pillow, her face pale as parchment. And leaning over her, pressing a pillow deliberately over her face, was Natasha Whitmore, his fiancée. The woman he'd planned to marry in 3 months. Time fractured into crystalline shards. Marcus watched Natasha's manicured hands, the same hands that had stroked his face, that had worn his grandmother's engagement ring, pushing down with methodical pressure. His mother's frail fingers clawed weakly at Natasha's wrists, her legs twitching beneath the thin hospital blanket. "Natasha!" The roar that tore from Marcus's throat didn't sound human. He exploded through the door, covering the distance to the bed in 2 strides. His hands locked around Natasha's shoulders, yanking her backward with such force that she stumbled, her designer heels skidding on the tile floor. The pillow fell to the ground like a surrendered weapon. "Marcus!" Natasha's face transformed instantly, her features contorting into manufactured shock and relief. "Oh my God, Marcus, thank God you're here." She stopped breathing. "I was trying to help. I was trying to." "Shut up." Marcus's voice was ice and venom. "Don't say." Another word. The monitors attached to his mother's body erupted into shrill alarms. Medical staff flooded the room, a doctor in blue scrubs, two nurses moving with practiced efficiency. Everyone out. Now, the doctor, a woman with steel-gray hair and sharp eyes, was already at Eleanor's side, checking vitals, adjusting oxygen levels. Two security guards appeared, their hands on Natasha's arms. She twisted in their grip, her voice rising to a panicked pitch. "This is insane. I was helping her. Marcus, tell them. Tell them I would never. Get her out of my sight." Marcus couldn't look at her. If he looked at her, he might do something he'd regret. Something violent and irreversible. They dragged Natasha from the room, her protests echoing down the corridor. Marcus stood frozen, watching the medical team work on his mother. The doctor pressed a stethoscope to Eleanor's chest, her expression intense with concentration. One of the nurses adjusted in foredrip. The other recorded vitals on a tablet. "Is she?" Marcus's voice broke. "Is she going to be okay?" The doctor didn't look up, her hands moving with steady precision. "Her oxygen levels are stabilizing. Pulse is weak but regular. Sir, I need you to step outside while we examine her fully." "I'm not leaving her." "Sir, I said I'm not leaving her." The words came out as a snarl. Marcus's legs gave out, and he collapsed into the chair beside his mother's bed, his hands gripping the metal railing. "I'm not leaving her again." The doctor's expression softened slightly. "Fine, but stay out of our way." She turned to one of the nurses. "Page Dr. Martinez. I want a full neurological workup and a tox screen." "Now." A tox screen. The words registered slowly in Marcus's spinning mind. They thought Natasha had poisoned her. They thought. His mother's hand moved weakly against the sheets. Marcus reached out, his fingers wrapping gently around hers. Her skin felt paper-thin, fragile as dried leaves. "Mom," he whispered. "Mom, I'm here. I'm here now. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Eleanor's eyelids fluttered but didn't open. The machines beeped steadily, a rhythm that Marcus clung to like a lifeline. A detective arrived 20 minutes later, a stocky man in his 50s with graying temples and weary eyes. "Mr. Brennan? I'm Detective Raymond Torres. I need to ask you some questions about what you witnessed." Marcus answered mechanically, his gaze never leaving his mother's face. Yes, he'd seen Natasha pressing a pillow over Eleanor's face. Yes, his mother had been struggling. Yes, he was certain it was intentional. His voice sounded distant, as if someone else was speaking through him. "We'll need you to come down to the station to give a formal statement," Torres said, scribbling notes. "But given the circumstances, tomorrow morning is fine. Your mother is our priority right now." "She was staying with my mother," Marcus heard himself say. "Natasha. I asked her to check on Mom while I was traveling. I trusted her." Torres's expression revealed nothing. "We'll look into everything, Mr. Brennan. The hospital has security footage. We'll get to the bottom of this." After Torres left, Marcus sat alone with his mother as the medical team completed their examination. Dr. Chun, the gray-haired physician, pulled up a chair beside him. "Mr. Brennan, your mother is stable for now. Her vitals are improving, and there's no indication of permanent damage from the oxygen deprivation. However, we need to discuss some concerning findings." Marcus finally tore his gaze from Eleanor's face. "What findings?" "Your mother has bruises on her arms and torso in various stages of healing, which suggests ongoing physical trauma over weeks, possibly months. We've also found irregularities in her blood work that indicate she may have been given medications that don't match her prescription history. We're running comprehensive tests. But Mr. Brennan, I have to ask, have you noticed any changes in your mother's behavior or appearance recently?" The question landed like a physical blow. Marcus's mind reeled backward through recent months, through moments he'd dismissed, explanations he'd accepted without question. 3 months ago, Natasha offering to stay with Eleanor while Marcus flew to London for investor meetings. "You work so hard, darling. Let me help. Your mother and I get along wonderfully." Eleanor had smiled when Marcus asked if she minded. Natasha is lovely company, sweetheart. You go do what you need to do. 2 months ago, Sunday dinner at Eleanor's brownstone in Riverside. His mother wearing a long-sleeved cardigan despite the summer heat. When she'd reached for the salt shaker, Marcus had glimpsed a purple bruise encircling her wrist. Mom, what happened to your arm? Natasha had answered before Eleanor could speak, her voice bright and casual. Oh, she took a tumble in the garden yesterday, reaching for her roses. You know how stubborn she is about those thorns. I told her to let me handle the pruning, but she insists on doing everything herself. Eleanor had nodded, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. I'm fine, Marcus. Just clumsy in my old age. 6 weeks ago, Eleanor's voice on the phone, quieter than usual, almost hesitant. Marcus, darling, when do you think you'll be home? He'd been reviewing quarterly reports, only half listening. Soon, Mom. Things are crazy right now with the Tokyo expansion. Natasha's still checking on you, right? A pause. Then, yes, she comes by every day. Something in her tone had nagged at him, but he'd dismissed it. His mother was just lonely. He'd make more time soon. He'd promised himself he would. 3 weeks ago, visiting Eleanor and finding all her medication bottles reorganized on the kitchen counter. Different order, different arrangement. Natasha had noticed his confusion and explained with a gentle laugh. I hope you don't mind. I've been helping your mom keep track of her pills. The bottles were so disorganized. I made a simple system so she doesn't accidentally skip doses. It had seemed thoughtful, caring. Why would he have questioned it? Mr. Brennan? Dr. Chin's voice pulled him back to the present. Did you notice anything? Marcus's throat constricted. She had a bruise on her wrist. Natasha said she fell in the garden. Dr. Chin's expression remained professionally neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Understanding. Pity. We see this pattern frequently in elder abuse cases. The explanations always sound reasonable in isolation. It's only when you step back and see the full picture that the truth becomes clear. Elder abuse. The words made Marcus's stomach turn. He'd been so blind. So catastrophically, unforgivably blind. I need to call hospital security, Dr. Chin continued. With your permission, we'll photograph your mother's injuries for evidence. Detective Torres will need them. Marcus nodded numbly. Evidence. Trial. Natasha would go to prison. Good. She should rot there. But even that thought brought no satisfaction, only a howling emptiness. The night stretched endlessly. Marcus refused to leave Eleanor's side, even when nurses came to check vitals, even when orderlies delivered breakfast trays he couldn't eat. He held his mother's hand and watched her chest rise and fall, terrified that if he looked away for even a second, she might stop breathing. Dawn broke gray and cold outside the hospital window. Eleanor's eyelids finally fluttered open around 7 in the morning. Her gaze wandered, confused, before landing on Marcus's face. Marcus. Her voice was a broken whisper, rough from the breathing tube they'd removed during the night. You're here. I'm here, Mom. Marcus leaned forward, his free hand cupping her cheek. Tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed suddenly flooded his eyes, hot and unstoppable. I'm here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Eleanor's fingers tightened weakly around his. Don't cry, sweetheart. You're here now. That's what matters. I should have been here before. I should have seen what was happening. I should have protected you. The words tumbled out, desperate and anguished. Marcus, she was hurting you. Natasha was hurting you, and I didn't see it. I brought her into your life. I asked her to spend time with you. I gave her access to you. And his voice cracked completely, dissolving into sobs. Eleanor tried to sit up, wincing with the effort. Marcus gently pressed her back against the pillows. Don't move, Mom. Please. You need to rest. Listen to me. Eleanor's voice gained strength, the tone she'd used when Marcus was a child and needed to hear something important. This is not your fault. Do you understand me? What Natasha did, that's on her, not you. But I should have known. The bruises, The way you seem different, quieter. I should have asked more questions. I should have. You trusted someone you loved. That's not a crime, Marcus. That's being human. Eleanor's eyes, still sharp despite her ordeal, held his gaze. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd blame yourself. I knew you'd feel exactly how you're feeling right now. Marcus stared at her, his mind struggling to process her words. You knew what she was doing, and you didn't tell me? Eleanor's expression crumbled, tears sliding down her weathered cheeks. I was ashamed, and I was scared. Scared that you wouldn't believe me. Scared that you'd think I was just a bitter old woman trying to sabotage your happiness. Natasha told me that's exactly what would happen if I spoke up. She said you'd choose her over me. The revelation hit Marcus like a sledgehammer. Mom, no. Never. You're my mother. You're my family. How could you think I'd choose anyone over you? Because you were happy, sweetheart. Happier than I'd seen you in years. And I thought, her voice broke. I thought maybe I could endure it. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it seemed. Maybe I was overreacting. She made me doubt my own reality. Marcus pressed his forehead against their joined hands, his body shaking with silent sobs. This was worse than anger, worse than betrayal. This was understanding that his mother had suffered alone, in silence, believing she had no one to turn to, believing her own son wouldn't save her. I'm so sorry, Eleanor whispered. I should have told you. No. Marcus lifted his head, his face wet with tears. I should have seen. I should have made time. I should have been present instead of constantly traveling, constantly working, constantly chasing the next deal. None of that matters, Mom. None of it. The company, the money, the empire, it's all worthless if I lose you. Eleanor smiled, sad and tender. You haven't lost me. I'm still here. Barely. If I'd arrived 5 minutes later. But you didn't. You arrived exactly when you needed to. And now we move forward. Detective Torres returned later that morning with updates that made Marcus's blood run cold. They'd obtained security footage from Eleanor's brownstone cameras Marcus had installed years ago for his mother's safety, never imagining they'd capture this kind of horror. Mr. Brennan, I need to warn you. This footage is disturbing. Torres set up his tablet on the hospital room's rolling table. Eleanor had fallen back asleep, exhausted from their conversation. Marcus nodded, his jaw clenched. Show me. The first video showed Natasha entering Eleanor's home 6 weeks ago. Nothing unusual, she carried a bag of groceries, let herself in with the key Marcus had given her. But then the timestamp jumped forward 2 hours. Natasha and Eleanor in the kitchen. Natasha's face was twisted with rage, nothing like the gentle mask she wore around Marcus. She shoved Eleanor against the counter, and even without sound, Marcus could see his mother's mouth opening in a cry of pain. There's more, Torres said quietly, his finger hovering over the play button. Do you want to continue? Yes. Marcus's voice was granite. The next clip showed Natasha helping Eleanor with her medication. But instead of handing her the prescribed pills, Natasha palmed them and substituted different tablets from her purse. Eleanor took them without question, trusting. Another video. Natasha screaming at Eleanor, who sat huddled on the couch, her hands covering her face. Natasha's finger jabbed accusingly, her mouth forming words Marcus didn't need to hear to understand. Worthless. Burden. In the way. The final clip was from 3 days ago. Natasha had Eleanor backed against the wall, her hand raised as if to strike. Eleanor flinched, protecting her head with her arms. Natasha didn't hit her. She just laughed, cold and cruel, before walking away. The psychological torture was somehow worse than physical violence. Marcus pushed the tablet away, his stomach heaving. Turn it off. Please. Torres obliged, his expression grim. We've also recovered text messages from Ms. Whitmore's phone. She deleted them, but our tech team retrieved them. She was researching inheritance laws, life insurance policies, ways to make deaths look natural. Mr. Brennan, this was premeditated. She wasn't acting in a moment of passion. She planned to kill your mother and make it look like natural causes. Why? The question tore from Marcus's chest. We were getting married. She would have had access to everything anyway. Why do this? Impatience, most likely. And greed. Your mother's alive. She's a reminder of your loyalties. Some people can't tolerate competition for affection or resources. They want complete control. Torres paused. We also found evidence that Ms. Whitmore had significant gambling debts of over $2 million to various casinos and private lenders. She needed money fast, and your mother's death would have accelerated her access to your wealth. Marcus felt like he was drowning. Natasha, the woman he'd introduced to his board, the woman he'd taken to charity galas, the woman he'd planned to build a life with, was nothing but a calculating predator. Every smile, every kiss, every love had been theater, a performance designed to position herself for maximum financial success. She'll be arraigned tomorrow morning, Torres continued. Given the evidence, I expect she'll be denied bail. The DA is pushing for attempted murder in the first degree, elder abuse, fraud, and a few other charges. She's looking at 15 to 25 years minimum. 15 to 25 years. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. Over the following week, Marcus moved through life like a ghost. He slept in a chair beside his mother's hospital bed, ignoring calls from his company, his assistant, his board of directors. His CFO threatened to resign if Marcus didn't return to address the Tokyo deal. Marcus told him to do whatever he thought was best and hung up. The media descended like vultures. Tech billionaire's fiancé arrested for attempted murder screamed headlines across every tabloid and news site. Paparazzi camped outside the hospital, cameras flashing whenever Marcus emerged for coffee or fresh air. His face, haggard and grief-stricken, appeared on magazine covers with speculation about his mental state, his company's future, whether he'd known about Natasha's true nature. Marcus ignored all of it. His world had narrowed to one person, one room, one mission: his mother's recovery. Eleanor improved slowly. Physical therapy helped her regain strength. Counseling sessions with a trauma specialist began addressing the psychological damage. But the woman who emerged from the ordeal was different, quieter, more cautious, prone to sudden tears when certain songs played on the radio or when shadows moved unexpectedly across the wall. She'll need time, Dr. Chen explained during one of their check-ins. What she experienced was profound trauma. The body heals faster than the mind. Be patient with her. Be patient with yourself. Patience. Marcus had spent 15 years racing through life at breakneck speed, measuring success in quarterly reports and stock prices. Now he learned the agonizing slowness of real healing, the way trust rebuilt itself in microscopic increments, how love expressed itself not in grand gestures, but in showing up, day after day, without expectation of reward. He read to Eleanor from mystery novels she loved, Agatha Christie and Dorothy Sayers, cozy whodunits where justice always prevailed. He brought her favorite tea from the small cafe they'd frequented when he was young, the one with the terrible mural of Venice on the wall. He played old jazz records on his phone, music his father had loved, and they'd sit in silence listening to Billie Holiday's voice drift through the hospital room like smoke. One afternoon, Eleanor asked him to bring her photo albums from home. Marcus spread them across her bed, and they traveled backward through time. Marcus as a gap-toothed 8-year-old, holding up a science fair trophy. Eleanor in her nurse's uniform, young and vibrant, smiling outside the hospital where she'd worked double shifts to afford Marcus's education. His father, dead now 15 years, with his arm around Eleanor's shoulders, both of them laughing at some long-forgotten joke. I was so angry at Dad when he died, Marcus said quietly, touching his father's photographed face. Angry that he left us. Left me. I think I've been running from that grief ever since. Eleanor reached over, her hand covering his. Your father loved you more than life itself. He'd be so proud of who you've become. Would he? Marcus's voice cracked. I built an empire and almost lost the person who mattered most. I don't think that's something to be proud of. You're here now? That's what counts. Marcus, sweetheart, success isn't measured in dollars or deals. It's measured in how you treat people when nothing's forcing you to, how you show up when it's hard, how you choose love over convenience. Eleanor squeezed his hand. Right now, you're choosing me over your company, your reputation, your comfort. That's success. That's what your father would want to see. The words broke something open in Marcus's chest. He laid his head on his mother's shoulder and cried for his father, for his mother, for the years he'd wasted chasing ghosts of approval and achievement, for the man he'd been and the man he was trying to become. 2 weeks after the attack, Eleanor was discharged. Marcus had prepared her brownstone with modifications, ramps for accessibility, a medical alert system, cameras in every room, with her permission, and a live-in nurse named Patricia, a warm woman in her 50s who treated Eleanor like family rather than a patient. But Marcus knew the house held too many dark memories now. So he made a decision that shocked his board and accountant. He sold his penthouse in Manhattan, the gleaming tower apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of Central Park, and bought a brownstone 3 doors down from his mother's. "You don't have to do this," Eleanor protested when he told her. "I have Patricia. I'm safe now. I know. But I want to. I need to. Mom, I've spent 15 years living in glass towers, surrounded by luxury and isolated from everything real. I want to come home. I want Sunday dinners and movie nights and arguments about whether you're taking your medication correctly. I want messy and complicated and present. I want to live 3 doors down from you and drink coffee on your porch and be your son, not just a name on your emergency contact list." Eleanor cried, and they held each other in her small living room, surrounded by the remnants of a life Marcus had almost let slip away forever. The media eventually moved on to newer scandals. Natasha's trial was scheduled for 6 months away, and Marcus intended to be there for every moment, to look her in the eye and show her that she hadn't won, hadn't broken them. But that was future business. Present business was relearning how to be a son. Marcus restructured his entire life. He promoted his CFO to CEO of Brennan Tech Industries, staying on as chairman but stepping away from daily operations. He established the Eleanor Brennan Foundation, dedicated to elder abuse prevention, caregiver support, and family services. The foundation became his new passion, channeling his business acumen towards something that mattered beyond shareholder value. He visited his mother every single day. Sometimes they cooked together, Eleanor teaching him her apple pie recipe that he'd never bothered to learn, Marcus burning the crust twice before getting it right. Sometimes they simply sat on her porch, watching the neighborhood go by, saying nothing because nothing needed to be said. Sometimes they talked about hard things, his father's death, her loneliness after Marcus moved to Manhattan, the ways they'd failed each other, and the ways they were learning to do better. 3 months after the attack, Eleanor told Marcus something that changed everything. They were in her garden, planting tulip bulbs for spring. Marcus's hands were covered in soil, his expensive watch forgotten on the porch railing. "Marcus, I need you to know something," Eleanor said, patting dirt around a bulb with careful precision. "I forgive Natasha." Marcus's hands stilled. "What?" "I forgive her. Not for her sake, but for mine. Carrying hatred is exhausting, sweetheart. It poisons everything it touches. I'm choosing to let it go. Mom, she tried to kill you. She abused you for months. I know what she did. I'll never forget it, and I'll testify at her trial. She needs to face consequences, but I won't let her steal any more of my peace. I survived. I'm here with you, planting flowers, feeling sunshine on my face. That's my victory. Holding on to rage would only give her power she doesn't deserve." Marcus stared at his mother, this woman who'd endured so much and emerged with grace and tact. "I don't know if I can do that." "Forgive her. You don't have to. Not today. Maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't a requirement, Marcus. But I want you to forgive yourself. For not seeing. For not being there. for being human and imperfect. Can you do that? Could he? Marcus looked down at his soil-covered hands, at the tulip bulbs they were planting together, at the evidence of faith that spring would come even after the darkest winter. "I'm trying," he said finally. "Every day I'm trying. That's all anyone can do." Eleanor smiled, and in that smile, Marcus saw his entire childhood scraped knees kissed better, report cards celebrated, heartbreaks weathered, triumphs cheered. Unconditional love, offered freely, asking nothing in return except presence. 6 months after the attack, Marcus sat in a courtroom and watched Natasha Whitmore sentenced to 18 years in prison. She'd maintained her innocence throughout the trial, weaving elaborate stories about misunderstandings and false evidence. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning a guilty verdict on all counts. When the judge read the sentence, Natasha finally broke. She looked directly at Marcus, and for the first time, he saw past her masks to the empty, desperate person beneath. He felt no satisfaction, no triumph, just profound sadness for the life she'd wasted, the pain she'd caused, the broken things she'd become. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions. Marcus ignored them, his arm around Eleanor's shoulders, guiding her to the car where Patricia waited. They drove home in silence. The chapter finally closed. That evening, Marcus and Eleanor sat on her porch as autumn darkness fell. The neighborhood was quiet except for distant traffic and the rustle of leaves. Eleanor held a mug of tea, Marcus a cup of coffee grown cold. "What are you thinking about?" Eleanor asked. Marcus considered the question. "How close I came to losing everything that mattered. How different my life is now compared to a year ago. How grateful I am that you're here. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. Not for a long time, if I have anything to say about it." "Good, because I have plans for us. There's a cooking class at the community center French cuisine. I thought we could take it together. And Patricia mentioned a book club that meets every Thursday. And I was thinking maybe we could take that trip to Ireland you've always talked about. Next spring, when the tulips we planted are blooming." Eleanor's eyes filled with tears, happy ones this time. "That sounds perfect." They sat together as stars emerged overhead, father and son, bound not by obligation or guilt, but by choice. Marcus had learned the hardest lesson of his life, that wealth meant nothing without connection, that success was meaningless without love, that coming home wasn't about addresses or buildings, but about showing up for the people who'd always shown up for you. His phone buzzed in his pocket, probably his assistant with some urgent company matter. Marcus pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and turned it off. Whatever it was could wait. Everything could wait. Right now, at this moment, he was exactly where he needed to be. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories about love, redemption, and second chances. Have you ever had to choose between success and family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. Remember, it's never too late to come home. It's never too late to choose love. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.